How's it going, guys? My name's Wilson. With the current climax of the NBA salary cap, it's impossible for teams to not make mistakes, like overpaying for some role players, even overpaying for all-star players who are no longer as good as they used to be. Sometimes teams spend over $100 million on them. So with the 2019 NBA free agency underway, let's take a look back at all the worst free agent signings from every team this decade. The Atlanta Hawks, Joe Johnson 2010. Multiple teams were trying to add Johnson during the offseason after a second round exit the year before, and Joe never leading the team to the conference finals. ISO Joe has always been defined by money, making over $220 million in his career. Atlanta decided to give him a $119 million contract for 6 years. He was almost 30 years old at the time. The following season, Johnson had his worst scoring year since he joined the Hawks in 2005. The team simply regretted their decision. 2 summers after the team traded him to the Nets for a bunch of average role players and joined the final year of his contract. The 34-year-old averaged 12 points a game, was making $24.9 million, the second highest at the time behind Kobe Bryant. He was a top 20 player at best, but combined with his career earnings of $220 million, talk about big bucks. The Boston Celtics, Jermaine O'Neal 2010. The team tried to fill the void after Rasheed Wallace left. Danny Ainge signed O'Neal to a 2-year worth $12 million, where the 32-year-old had a disastrous time in Boston, having countless injuries, played a combined total of 49 games in 2 seasons, averaged just 5.1 points and 4.5 points. The team depended heavily on him after Kendrick Perkins and Shaquille O'Neal was gone, but Jermaine couldn't do much. The Brooklyn Nets signing Gerald Wallace to a 4-year $40 million deal after being traded from Portland at the trade deadline. The 29-year-old had his best years behind him, and Brooklyn was desperately trying to be relevant. The worst part of this deal was causing the Nets the first-round pick, which turned out to be Damian Lillard. Wallace was later traded to the Celtics as part of the Garnett and Pierce package. The Charlotte Hornets signing Nicholas Batum to a whopping 5-year deal worth $120 million by former GM Rich Choi, who was later fired and replaced by Mitch Kupchak. The team wasted a lot of their money on the 6'8" forward, made $23 million this past season and over $25 for the next 2 years. The Chicago Bulls, summer 2010, signing Carlos Boozer to a 5-year $80 million deal, who didn't provide Derrick Rose the help team needed to get over the hump. Got absolutely destroyed by Chris Bosh in the 2011 Eastern Conference Finals. Bosh averaged 23 a game, Boozer 14.5 points, scored a pathetic 5 points in Game 5, was inconsistent, lacked defense, and way past his prime. After 4 seasons, the team decided to amnesty him. Many Bulls fans viewed Boozer's time with the franchise an atrocity. The Cleveland Cavaliers' J.R. Smith, who agreed to a shocking 4-year worth $57 million deal after helping the team win its first ever championship, but the 31-year-old was way past his prime, averaged 8.2 points on 38% shooting over the last 3 seasons, regressed it in every way imaginable, will always be remembered for dribbling out the clock in Game 1 of the 2018 Finals after his contract. The Dallas Mavericks signing Harrison Barnes to a max deal of 4 years worth $95 million, where he didn't help the team produce wins, failed to average 20 points in his 2.5-year tenure with the Mavs, was basically putting up empty stats on a bad team. The Denver Nuggets' Kenneth Faried, who signed a 4-year $50 million extension before the 2014-15 season, who fell off the rotation after a couple years, later found himself spending most of his time on the bench. Denver traded him to Brooklyn, freezing up $21 million in salary, barely played for the Nets, but was a contributor for the Rockets on a 1-year vet minimum this past season. The Detroit Pistons' Josh Smith, who signed with the Pistons back in 2013 on a 4-year $54 million deal. After a solid first season of 16.4 points, his numbers and attitude started to take a turn, was jacking up and missing many threes. Detroit opted to stretch his contract, released him in the middle of his second season, and the franchise paid him $5.3 million this past season and next year, despite him not playing in an NBA game since November 3rd of 2017, a huge mistake that's still costing the team salary. The Golden State Warriors, who made very few mistakes this decade, but in 2010, before Steph Curry was a star, the team signed David Lee on a sign and trade deal as an unrestricted free agent, earning him a 6-year worth $80 million. The Houston Rockets, the Chris Paul contract, signing a 4-year $160 million deal at age 33 with his health and greatness already diminishing. The Rockets seemed to be shooting themselves in the foot. It seemed to be the smarter decision to keep Lou Will, Pat Bev, and Montrezl Harrell, not to mention Dwight Howard's 3-year worth $70.5 million million deal, who missed time with injury and didn't have the same impact he did with Orlando. And of course, who can forget Ryan Anderson's 4-year worth $80? The Indiana Pacers, Monte Ellis, who signed a 4-year $44 million contract but played for only 2 seasons before the team waived him, was out of the league at 31 years old, and losing his quickness, his inefficiency, and lack of floor spacing makes him a huge liability in today's NBA. The Los Angeles Clippers signing Spencer Hawes to a 4-year $23 million deal, averaged under 6 points, and despite being traded the season after, he made no impact whatsoever in the 2014-15 season. The Los Angeles Lakers, Luol Deng, summer 2016, LA signed him to a 4-year deal worth $72 million. The franchise still had the $5 million on their books after waiving and stretching Deng's contract, where he only appeared in just 57 total games for purple and gold. The front office decision of signing him still hurts to this very day. And who can forget, the Timothy Mozgov's 4-year $64 million comes in second place. The Memphis Grizzlies, Chandler Parsons' ridiculous 4-year $94 million max, one of the biggest robberies in NBA history, who missed more than half the season the last 3 years, averaged fewer than 8 points a game, was injury prone in Dallas, an absolute stupid decision by the Grizzlies front office. Parsons scored a total of 681 points the last 3 seasons combined, made over $69 million during that time. That's over $100,000 per point. Absolute insanity. The Miami Heat, who had multiple terrible signings, this time is 2 players with the same last names, Tyler Johnson and James Johnson, where Tyler got a 4-year $50 million in summer 2016, while James agreed to a 4-year $60 million in summer 2017, overpaying for average players. Tyler's now no longer with the team. That's why the team have been average as of late. The Milwaukee Bucks, Larry Sanders, who the team will pay through the 2021-22 season after a 4-year $44 million deal in 2013 using the NBA stretch provision. Sanders missed many times due to injury and retired 2 seasons after for personal reasons. The Minnesota Timberwolves, not Andrew Wiggins since he signed his max before hitting free agency, so it's Nikola Pekovic, who signed for 5 years $60 million in summer 2013 after averaging 16 and 9 as the starting center. His production dropped and was nagging foot injuries, was forced to retire in the 2015-16 season. The New Orleans Pelicans, Omer Ashik's 5-year $60 million deal in 2015 after averaging 7 and 10 the season before. The 7-foot center had injuries after his contract, missed more than 50 games in each of his next 4 seasons after, made no impact. The New York Knicks, Joakim Noah's insane 4-year $72 million deal, summer 2016. The center was coming off huge injuries with the Bulls, was not the same player at 31 years old, averaged just 5 points, almost 9 rebounds his first season in New York, scored a combined 244 points in 2 seasons at the Mecca, $295,000 per point in the Knicks uniform, played just 53 games and was later waived and stretched. His contract will remain in the books for a while, but rejuvenated his career a little bit with Memphis last season, but his best days are behind him. The Oklahoma City Thunder, Sam Presti choosing to sign Serge Ibaka to an extension worth 4-year $48 million, which drove James Harden away, a decision that will forever haunt the franchise, opening the door for the franchise losing 2 MVP players. The Orlando Magic, Bismack Biyombo, summer 2016. Thankfully, they traded him to Charlotte, but giving him 4-year $72 million was absolutely ludicrous after a couple good playoff games with the Raptors. Biyombo's a very average role player with extremely limited offensive skills. The Philadelphia 76ers signing Kwame Brown in 2012. After becoming one of the most disappointing busts in NBA history, it was a miracle how Brown was able to convince Philly to sign him to a 2-year worth $5.7 million deal. Even the great Kobe Bryant had no idea why Philly would give Kwame that type of money. After waiving him after the first season, Brown would never play another NBA game again. The Phoenix Suns, Brandon Knight, who signed a 5-year worth $70 million in 2015, was troubled by serious injuries after being forced to miss the entire 2017-18 season. Knight looked like a promising player before that and was traded to Houston in summer 2018. Houston traded him to Cleveland shortly after. The Portland Trail Blazers signing Evan Turner to a 4-year worth $70 million. A former number 2 overall bust nobody talks about, Turner spent most of his time coming off the bench, averaged single digits in scoring, didn't provide much for the Blazers. The Sacramento Kings signing Aaron DeFallo to a 2-year worth $25 million summer 2016, was released after 1 season after averaging 8.4 points, last played for the Orlando Magic in the 2017-18 season. The The San Antonio Spurs, where the franchise don't make much mistakes, the team did resign Thiago Splitter to a 4-year $36 million deal, was essentially worth the same as Tim Duncan, who was making $9 million per year at the time. Splitter at best is an average role player and did play a vital role on the 2014 championship team. The Toronto Raptors signing DeMar Carroll to a 4-year $60 million deal in 2015 was viewed as a valuable piece at the time, but his tenure was filled with injuries, played in a diminished role, was traded to the Nets in 2017. While Landry Fields' 3 years $18 million in 2012 deserves a mention, the Utah Jazz Alec Burks' 4 years $42 million in 2014 was bad, from averaging over 13 a game the first 2 years of his deal to less than 8 points the 2 seasons after. He lost minutes and didn't provide much. Although Dante Exum's 3-year $33 million he signed summer 2018 might surpass Burks in a couple years, the Washington Wizards' Jan Mahimi's 4-year $64 million in 2016 was awful. He's nothing more than a bench player, where John Wall's insane supermax might be the worst decision the franchise ever made, but Wall didn't test free agency at the time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I talk NBA comparisons, amazing storylines, NBA history, and anything basketball that will interest you. If you love the NBA, subscribe for more content, more great stuff coming soon. I love all of you. See you next time.